Great. Thank you, Gina. Hi, everyone. I'm Margot Conahan, ACRL's Manager of Professional Development. Thank you for joining us today for another webinar offered as part of our COVID-19 and Academic Librarianship webinar series. Just like when we started this series way back in March, our goal for today is to bring our colleagues together to discuss ways to best meet our community's needs during these uncertain times. We appreciate you being here with us today. Today's session is being recorded, and we will email out the link to the recording shortly after the webinar. We'll also post the recording online, and so it'll be available to revisit, access, and view the PowerPoint. Today's webinar is Reopening Campus During the Pandemic, Treading Water in the Deep End. I'd like to thank our presenters, Joyce Newyear and Lacey Rogers, for being with us today. Joyce is the Assistant Dean of Library Services and Director of Patron Services at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Lacey is the Access Services Librarian, also at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Joyce and Lacey, thanks so much for being with us today, and please feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks Margot, and thanks to all of you for joining us. I hope we present some very useful information for you today and maybe provide a few laughs because we can all use those. So I just wanted to let you know I'm not quite used to speaking at my slides. I really like to talk with people, and it's much easier when they're in the room with me. So I do have a lot of cardboard cutouts in front of me, and I have to say that you all look just really great. Thanks for dressing up, and oh, love those shoes. So thanks for joining us today. This is how I envision the world looks a little bit like right now, minus the fires that we've experienced, the hurricanes, and I think half of Greenland is also melting. So clearly there are a lot of issues surrounding all of us today, a lot to deal with. The word fatigue has been kind of a go-to here on our campus. We have COVID fatigue, we have compassion fatigue, and we definitely have signage fatigue, and you'll see some examples of that later on. But right now, fatigue has begun to change into the word exhaustion. We're exhausted from the signage, we're exhausted from dealing with COVID. So learning how to take care of yourself and your colleagues will also be a part of something that we talk about today. And that is a key question. What can you do to help yourself and help others that you supervise or you work with? How do you help continue to function in these trying times? What do our employees or our colleagues need now? And what can we maybe do ahead of time to help them? Our intent is to share with you some of what we have found worked for us and continues to keep working for us here in Nebraska. And we also want to make sure we give you a chance to share your ideas, and please ask questions. In mid-March, COVID was starting to pick up speed, and our campus was scrambling with what we called continuity of services. If we needed to all go home and work from home, there needed to be processes in place to get ready for that and then to go home, which is a lot to bite off, and I'm sure you all experienced the same thing. We started saying the word nimble. We needed to be nimble and to be able to move quickly. And it was at that point I decided that making a chart like this one that you see here would be much easier to explain to our employees what to do next. So, I could just tell everyone, all right, everyone, we're at level 2. No, wait, we're at level 4. Oh, go back to level 3. And that did happen. It was about that rapid. Things changed quickly. We put this chart on our wiki, and everyone knew where it lived. As soon as we knew we were in level 1, people could go look at that and understand what was going on. I did follow the CDC recommendations with some of the low density population in the buildings, but mostly it was for our library employees. And I think it did give them a sense of security a bit in the beginning, just to know that there's some semblance of organization happening even when there really wasn't that much. Our dean took this chart to the upper administration and shared it with the other deans. And while this was specific to the library, it did become a template for others to follow. We all worked from home in April and May. And before we semi-opened June 1st, that's when the library opened and no one else opened, then we had to decide how to bring the staff back. We were told that we needed to stay at 1/3 of the staff to lower the density and decrease the exposure. So I made this chart and put it in the wiki again and asked all of our employees to choose their preference. Doesn't mean you'll exactly get what you want, but if right now, just choose and let us know what you would like to do. And the hope was it would sort itself out, because none of us really wanted to have to say to Jim, sorry, I know you want to do hybrid, but you have to be in the library as much as you can. Fortunately, as you can see, it did work itself out, and the people that chose to be in the library as much as possible are actually our front service desk workers. They are the ones that we needed here most importantly, and they are the ones that wanted to be here. So that helped us out quite a bit. And we are still using this today. This is still our model for people in the building. So we were the first people in June the first building in June to open, but we had a little bit of a practice early on at graduation week in May. We wanted to give our patrons a chance to get their materials turned out before they left for wherever they were going. The campus was going to be much more deserted in the summertime. All classes were to be online. So if we thought we could get our things back, we wanted to give people a chance, especially our high dollar items. That we had a couple of cameras out, and I think 1 or 2 of our gaming consoles were still checked out, and this was from March. So we really did want to bring those back. Unfortunately, we had like about a 90% return rate. We were only opened 4 hours for every day for 3 different days, and we were really pleased with the result that we got returned back. Our hours have fluctuated over this time like everything else, and right now we're open 74 hours a week, but not open on Sunday. So as I said, we were one of the first buildings to open on campus, and I think our dean volunteered us all to do that. It makes sense. The library is a central place on campus, and those few students we did have liked coming into the library, and they did need our internet access. So we were the guinea pigs and opened up. We started with just the main floor. We have 3 floors in our library, but we started with just the main floor. We blocked off the stairwells and the staircases, and had just we had the books paged. All the DVDs and CDs were placed on hold if people wanted them, and then patrons could come to the service desk and pick up their materials. The building was accessible only to people with their ID cards. For us, it's called a MAV card. This did not make a lot of our community members happy. Our library is open to the whole Omaha community in normal times, which we are probably never going to see again. The Omaha public libraries also were closed, so we were the only library around that they could come to, and unfortunately we were not able to allow them in. Also at this time, there was no campus or city mandate that had been passed requiring face masks. So our employees in the library did choose to wear masks, hoping that that might catch on. And remember, this was early in June. And a few patrons did as well, but most patrons did not. This is an example of how our great buildings team moved furniture around for us. over here you can see this was before COVID. The chairs and tables, 4 chairs at each table, the soft seating. Sometimes there were 4 of these together. Oftentimes there were 10, lots of groups of people working and socializing, which is what you want to see in our library. The booths are very popular. These can seat up to 6 people. Normally it would be like 1 on this side and 1 on this side. Well, we had to change to this. 1 table, 1 chair. Our communications specialist, here's a sign. These table tents are all over the library with more information about keeping safe, wear your mask, don't move the furniture. Some people read, some people don't. The booths were taped off so no one could sit on this side. You're supposed to only sit here. Mostly we have adherence to that, but every now and then you'll see someone that is snuck under that tape because you just can't keep them apart. And I get it. I do understand. We're social and people want to be together. This more pictures of some distancing. This is on our 3rd floor. And again, these tables would have normally had like 4 of these chairs. It looks very stark and very empty, and that's what it is. Question for all of you, if you think about having to move your furniture, where do you move that furniture to? Do you have storage for all of the furniture that you need to store? Well, we certainly didn't, so we made use of the chairs we no longer needed and used them as a barrier in front of our group study rooms. These study rooms are open and available, so it would be easy for our students to go in those rooms. By putting the chairs, putting up our crime tape, we hoped to keep them out, and so far it has worked. And then you can also call a meeting for all task chairs. Please come to the 1st floor, congregate together as close as you can, and caution tape yourself around. Yeah, this picture just, it drives me nuts, but it also is kind of humorous. A frequent comment on campus was, I don't know, ask the library, what'd they do? Because we were the first building to open on campus, so we were experiencing a lot of what was going to be happening for all the rest of the buildings on campus. So we were asked to be on the committees that the university got together. There were 5 different committees. They wanted representatives from the library on each one of those committees because we did have information that they needed and things that they hadn't thought of, we'd already experienced. There were long discussions concerning the guests and the visitors and how to handle these 2 groups. We have a lot of community opportunities on our campus, a lot of events. A lot of them are RSVP only. So if that were to continue, how do you handle the guests when they come on campus? Do you tell them that they have to wear their mask, they have to stay social distanced? Or do you hope that people already know that? How do you communicate that out? Ultimately, after wrestling with this for about a month, it was decided we just cancel all events. And that was painful for a lot of us to do because that's part of what we're used to. That's part of what we do as a metropolitan community campus. But ultimately, it was the best decision, I think. The visitors we treat as they come in, all of the buildings have masks they can hand out to people that walk in and don't have them. The grab and go food is still happening currently on campus. The cafeterias are open, but there are no buffets. I'll point out some signage over here. For the rest of the slides, there'll be some examples of all of the different signs that we have made because we want you to feel like what that fatigue signage felt like too. We didn't want to just keep that to ourselves. So then some more of the campus meetings. were about classrooms, and the facilities met and communications met. We have about 15,000 students registered for our campus, and only around 600, that 1/3 of students, were allowed back on campus into the dorms. We do have specific dorms that are reserved for quarantined students, and they may be quarantined because they have COVID or because they are close contact. There are 43 beds available for those students, and they're not all full. I don't really know the percentage right now that are full.
I don't think that they have very many kids in quarantine right now, period. I think they have maybe like 5. It's
Good.
really, really low number.
That's good. Thanks, Lacey. I'll mention here that our chancellor serves both UNO and UNMC, the Med Center. He is an MD, he's a heart doctor, and he has been all things COVID for quite a while. Even before it came to the United States, he was on top of it and knew what was coming. So it's been great to have him here. He has forums every month that people can ask him questions, and I think it has served to help calm some of the nerves around campus. So we opened all our floors then at the end of August, when we were starting to ramp up again. Students were coming back. All 3 of our floors were open. We expanded our services to everything being available, and we also allowed everyone in. That did mean the community, and that lasted for 3 days. It didn't work well. Too many people without masks, too many people not paying attention to the distancing, so we had to change it back to MAV card only, and we were sad about that again. I'll point out this sign. It says, "Charming, good-looking, social distancing folks, wait here." I really like this sign, and if we ever ruin the ones we have that are on the floor, I'm going to copy that sign. And I'm sure our communication specialist can't wait to make another one. So with the meetings go communication. All the meetings that were attended, communication was brought back, and we needed someone to gather and organize that information, what's appropriate for the library, what we thought people might need. And I became that person, and this all lived on that central place in the wiki again. We had so many meetings. We had the library meetings, we had dean meetings and director meetings, and we were meeting ourselves coming and going. There were a lot of meetings with so much information available every day, and it was changing every day. That was cause for anxiety, and you could tell it was wearing on people. Even though a lot of people were still working from home, you could tell just by the interactions through emails or when we had a Zoom meeting, people were getting anxious again. So having this information available to everyone seemed to help. At least they said that it did. We did have an all-employee meeting, which was like 10 minutes of us giving some information out, but the rest of that hour was spent listening to their questions and really paying attention to what their needs were. If we could answer the question, we did right away. If we couldn't answer the question, then we got back to them and the whole library, put that information in the wiki page, and then everyone could see it. And I think that did help to comfort people when they knew that when they were looking for information, they knew where to go, they knew it would be there, and they knew it would be current. That meant a lot for the trust factor, knowing that we were paying attention and keeping it updated. These signs are monitors in our electronic monitors. There's one like this in our foyer. Actually, there's 2. This one is further on in the library, and this is a rolling monitor that we can move wherever we need to in the library. All of these have rotating information about you name it, because you just can't have enough signs. Remember that. So the main areas to cover when you're thinking about opening up the signage. Have I mentioned signs? Have we talked about signs yet? Lacey, have we talked about signs?
I don't know if we have yet.
I don't know. We should probably talk some more
I think
about it.
probably.
Okay. This big sign here is a video wall. It's actually 4 monitors, about 36 inches in portrait mode. It sits along our stairwell, and it is right when you come in on the main floor. Our creative production lab supervisor is a great guy, has a little fun talking, and I think he put it quite well here. If you can read this, a mask is required to be on your face. Please wear a mask at all times. Yes, it has to cover your nose. That's something they just hate to do, is to keep that nose covered. Don't remove it to check your phone. Lots of times they have to remove it to check their phone. Limit your time eating and then put it back on. Even if you're socially distanced, keep it on. It kind of works. The other things to think about is to take care of the people in the library. It's really important they know what to do if they think they might have been exposed. There needs to be a really good system in place to alert those that might be infected by close contact. And then what do you do if you are infected? All those answers, you'll see some samples of how we answered those questions. And again, the answers to those really important questions are available to everyone whenever they need it. I can't stress enough that trust that you need to have with your employees. They know that you're taking care of them, and they do feel cared for. So I'm going to give it over to Lacey now. Hopefully a smooth transition will occur.
I'm really hoping for that smooth transition. We're going to try.
Okay.
So if there's a break, I really apologize. I'm going to try my hardest to not have it be super awkward, but here we go.
There we go. Okay.
All right. It looks good on my end. I really hope it looks good on everybody else's end, so we're just going to go ahead and keep going. I don't think that Joyce really mentioned the signs.
I didn't. I'm so glad you have a slide. Yeah, so glad you have this.
But we're not kidding when we talk about sign fatigue, and we're not kidding when we say signs everywhere, a sign, because they're everywhere. A couple of things I want to point out. The Science Says one is a pretty great one. Believe science whether you want to or not. And this other one that I want to point out is this bottom left-hand corner. This is the entry, main entry into the library. 6 doors, and they all have at least one sign. And I believe 2 or 3 of them have 3 or 4 signs. So you're bombarded right away. Some people are great about reading them. Some people kind of read them. Some people don't care.
And they were constantly changing signs when
Yes.
the hours changed, when mask requirement or mask suggested, constantly changing.
Yes. Couple more, because they're everywhere. These are the table tents that Joyce talked about earlier, this upper left-hand corner. They've also changed a couple of times because we had to really specify people don't move the furniture. We have a lot of kids that want to pull chairs from other tables or pull tables together or just straight up move everything. And under normal circumstances, cool, do what you need to do. Unfortunately, we're not under normal circumstances. The other one that I want to point out with our signage is this water fountain in the bottom right-hand corner. We did have the crime scene tape over those for a while as well, but we had a staff member point out that if we have a patron that comes in a wheelchair, they may not be able to reach that water bottle filling station that we would prefer people use. So we do kind of need to let them have an option. We did have a patron come up to the desk and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I drank out of the water fountain. Is that okay?" Yes, but ew. So it's okay. It happens. We do a couple things to keep safe. I'm going to give a little shout out really quick to these pictures here. It's not campus required, but my next door office neighbor has these adorable clings on her door, and I love them, and they make me happy every time I come to campus. So shout out to that. To keep safe, we have a really great way to get some of this PPE stuff through student services. We are not necessarily required to purchase masks, sanitizer, alcohol wipes through the library budget, which is nice because that helps us get some other cleaning supplies or other necessary things, or just things that we need on a regular basis that we may have been a little concerned about. The student services, if we need a mask, if we need boxes of masks, we can alert our administrative assistant. She can contact student services. They send them over within a day. Building services has been great about making sure that we have cleaning sprays, disinfectant sprays, microfiber cloths to wipe things down. If we need a refill, it's right there. If we need more cloths, it's right there. They've all been fabulous. Another thing that's helpful with keeping safe is to make sure that you understand and are aware of all of the policies and procedures that are going on locally. We don't just have the policy on campus for mask requirements, we also have a city mandate from Omaha to back that up. It's not statewide right now. It is just City of Omaha. City of Lincoln also has a mandate. Our mask mandate actually just got extended here in Omaha through the 20th of October. And from there, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not on city council. As much as I would like to say that I have the ultimate opinion and that we will wear masks until everything is gone, I don't think they're going to listen. And that's okay. They should listen. Another part of keeping safe is to make sure that your signage is easy to understand, that it's visible. Pictures seem to work better than words. And even though that sign fatigue really happens, it is helpful to have signs available so you can just point. It's right there. You don't have to say, well, this one sign that you probably buzzed right past as you were walking in said that you should have a mask. It's right there on the table. Are you aware that we have this mask policy? Because it's staring you in the face that we do, not to be rude or anything. It's there though. When we have students that really don't want to understand the signage or the policies, we do have a behavior review team, and there is a form attached to that. It's really easy for staff and faculty to find, students to find. They can fill them out too. They have to fill them out if they get tested for COVID. It's easy to find. It goes directly to the Vice Chancellor and Dean of Students. Her name is Kathy Pettit. And I want to take a minute to talk about Kathy because she has been an absolute angel on earth for UNO campus. She is so great at her job. I have a little story. I was on campus on a Sunday evening. I was supervisor in charge. We had a community member sneak in with a group of students. They were not supposed to be in the building. They were being a little bit naughty with their mask. They had left the building. They tried to get back in. They were really naughty when they tried to get back in. I had asked them if they were a student. They paused. They said yes. It gave me reason to pause. I asked if I could verify their student status. It turns out they were not. I let them know, hey, we're not open to the community right now. I'm really sorry about that, but I have to ask you to leave. They asked why. I said, you know, we're focusing on our students, faculty, and staff right now. The students pay to go here. We have occupancy limits that we're concerned about. The guy throws up his hands telling me, well, there's no one in this building. Your occupancy doesn't matter with me or without me. And I said, well, you know what? That's our rules. I'm sorry, you have to leave. I filled out that behavioral review team form, sent it off 5:30 p.m. on a Sunday, and I got a response from Kathy Pettit back in a minute via email saying, I'm sending this to campus security. They'll be in contact with you, and campus security was in contact with me the next morning. So it's a very quick, efficient, helpful thing to have on campus. I hope everybody has their own Kathy. We do some quarantining of materials. Recommended right now is 72 hours. I believe that there are some different information out there. If you go digging, I've seen some things saying that it's recommended to go up to 6 days. We do tend to leave things unstacked. I think that seems to be helpful. We do clean off our laptops and tech equipment when they come back in. We have disinfectant wipes that we can do everything with that's approved for technology. And we do have some interesting reserve things. Our reserve manager has chosen to quarantine books that come back in her space. That was their choice. That's up to them. We do have some things that we can clean though, which it's really nice because they are kind of popular checkouts. We have some medical skeletal dummies, I guess you would say, but we have like an ear that you can take apart, and we have an arm and a leg, and I think there used to be a brain, but I'm not sure that it's there anymore. So when we lend that ear or give that hand, we are able to clean those off right away, or the students can clean them off when they come back. So those ones don't get quarantined quite as much as other items just because they can be cleaned. The next big thing for us was what happens when an employee tests positive for COVID. Well, what does the library do? It's really hard to ask the library what they did when you are the library. So we were kind of the first on this, and we had to figure it out. On the right-hand side here is the workflow for supervisors. Part of that came from our having somebody test positive. Long story short, we had someone that one of our staff members contacted me. I was their supervisor. I am their supervisor. They're still alive and with us, it's fine. They contacted me and said that they were going in to get tested. Their test came back positive. They had been in the building, and 5 other staff members had to go get tested as well. It happened on a Thursday that these 5 other staff members, including myself, had to go get tested, which meant we had exactly 0 people to open the building and run the service desk that Friday. Thankfully, classes were not in session yet, and we were able to kind of pull together a skeleton crew. Joyce, Dean Richards, and that communication specialist that we mentioned earlier, Claire. Please don't leave, Claire. They all were able to open the desk and do some limited service. Thankfully, we just had the 1 positive test, and by Monday, we were able to get the desk back up and running. 4 of us came back on Monday, and the remaining staff member came back that Tuesday. But it was a little bit tough because we didn't really know exactly what to do, because we were the canary in the coal mine. We had no idea really what was coming our way. But in a way, it was kind of nice to get it over with because we were able to help other people, which is what a library is for. And we were able to get through that. And that employee that did test positive was out for about a month, but they are fine now. They're back on campus, and they seem to be doing just great. This slide is just an example of some of the information that we put out as library folks for our other library folks so that they knew what to do. It's there for people that want to read it. It's there for people that want to skim it. It's there for people that want to know where it's at if they need it. And it's there for people that don't care. And we have all of them, and that's okay. What do you do when a student tests positive? We haven't had a student test positive at the library. Yay! We did have a student worker that was tested. They came back negative. We followed the same procedure. That student is very conscientious about their communication. They contacted me and said, I'm going in for testing and quarantine. They had already asked people to cover their shifts. They were great about communication when I asked them, later on, are you okay? Are things going okay? Did you hear anything from your test? They were actually moving out of quarantine when I contacted them. They said, yes, I'm negative. I'm planning on coming back to work. I let them know, if you need some more time, that's okay. It's kind of an awkward, little bit scary experience. And they said, no, I want to get back to normal. I'm just glad this is over. And I think that's important regardless of the level. If it's a student worker, if it's part-time staff, if it's faculty, whoever, let them know that they're supported, and if they need that extra time, it's okay. I get the feeling a little bit that people feel like they're going to get in trouble if they're sick or if they come down with COVID, and you're not. It's unfortunate. We feel bad for you. We don't want you to be sick. We want you to be okay. We want you to take care of yourself because we need you. You're an important part of our campus, and it's harder to run without a full staff than it is. It's just tough. So we want to make sure that everybody feels supported and that we can do what we can to cover when these kinds of things happen, and to let people know, no, you're not in trouble for being sick. That's something that happens even if it's not COVID. We do occasionally get folks that don't want to follow the rules. On the right hand here is a script that we have posted on our wiki. It's helpful for folks that aren't wanting to cooperate with the mask mandate. And it's kind of just in general a good thing to have if somebody is being mouthy. We do make announcements in the library. they do seem to work pretty well. We just make a really simple announcement. It's a live announcement that broadcasts throughout the building saying, UNO policy states and City of Omaha mandates that masks or face coverings are required on campus, and that does include the library. Please take a moment to make sure that your mask is covering fully your nose and mouth and that you are aware of people around you. You would be surprised how many students take the time at that point. Oh yeah, this isn't over my nose, I'm gonna fix it. That's awesome. Another thing that seems to have worked pretty well for us is if someone is not wearing a mask or if they're not wearing their mask appropriately, to ask a question of them as opposed to straight up saying, do this. Hi, I noticed that you're not wearing a mask. Are you aware that we have a policy? Can I get one for you? Most folks on campus do have one with them. They just aren't wearing it for some reason at that point in time. A lot of times it's because they think that they're by themselves. They're not super worried about the social distancing. I totally understand where they're coming from with that, but I've pointed out to a couple of kids that have asked questions about that. Well, I'm socially distant, there's nobody around. Are you sure I have to wear my mask? And I tell them, well, I popped up out of nowhere, so you never know when the next person is gonna pop up out of nowhere, so you should probably wear your mask. And that works too. I'm actually kind of surprised at how well that works, the reasoning with it. It's also really helpful to have a mask with you. That way, if somebody is trying to skirt the rules a little bit and say, oh, well, it's in my car, sorry. Oh, that's okay, remember it next time, please. I have one for you this time. You can't see me like forcing a mask into someone's hands or pretending to behind my computer screen, but that's what's happening. If somebody gets really nasty with us, we have that behavioral review team form that we can fill out. We've only had to do 3 so far. One for a patron that continuously was not following the mask rules. And it wasn't that we filled out the form because they weren't wearing the mask. We filled out the form because they were getting obnoxious with myself and another staff member. And we were kind of sick of them being mouthy. The other one was the community member that snuck in, and then we had 2 people in a 1-person study room. They all got BRT forms. This is just some kind of general information. We on campus have numbers that come out weekly. This is this week's. It was just put up yesterday. We're doing pretty good at 163 cases. Most of them are not acquired on campus. We have quarantine rooms available if folks need them. We do have some kids that just choose to go home, and that's okay. As long as they're taking care of themselves and can get back on track and stay in school, that's what we want. I have some gate count information. Dun, dun, dun. I have a feeling that we're not the only people that have experienced some of these gate count numbers. As you can see, we took a huge dip from February down to April when we were closed for our gate stats. And that's a big difference from 2019, where we had a summer dip, which is not uncommon in academic libraries, and then back up for the fall. I think it's important to point out on that last slide, our September 2020 numbers, we had in our gate count roughly 9,600 people in and out of the building. In September of 2019, the year prior with no COVID, we had close to 67,000 gate count. So right now we're running at about 15% of the patrons that are usually here. And that's sad, but it's also really good because it means people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and staying home. Thank you for that. As we're kind of getting ready to wrap up, I'm going to go back to the social distancing that Joyce talked about a little bit. We have an unsolved mystery. This is another one that, well, what does the library do? We don't quite have a great answer for it. Students are being assigned to do group work, understandable. Students want to do group work. They want to complete their assignments. They want to study with their friends. They want to study with their roommates. They want to study with kids that, maybe some tutoring help. And they really can't. And it's really hard to tell them you can't, because they have to get this group work done. They want to be able to get help. And sometimes Zoom just doesn't cut it. So what do you do? And I did say earlier we had to turn in the BRT form on 2 kids that had snuck into a single occupancy study room together. So the signs aren't really working for this. We have kids still moving the furniture around, pulling chairs together. I had a group of students that decided that it was a good idea to like snuggle up together on the couch. And under normal circumstances, I would be one of those people because I'm cold. So I want everybody else's body heat, but right now that's not really the best way to go about doing your studying. So I see that there's a couple of things popping up in chat. Maybe somebody has a solution for us. If you do, awesome. We will 100% give you credit. Like I'll make another slide and figure out how to put it in there. By the way, the solution to the unsolved mysteries came from X person at Y University. But this is a tough one for us. So if anybody has any ideas, solutions, anything, please, please let us know because we're a little bit stumped on this one. With that, I am hoping that we have enough time for questions because I did not bring my phone in for a good reason. But I see that there are a couple of things in chat. So is it okay if we open up for questions?
I think it is. We'll go ahead and have Margot shout those out to us.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for that info. That's been wonderful. And I encourage people to continue adding their questions and comments to the chat. And we have had a couple come in, so I'll just start with the first one. There was a question kind of early on that asked, are there times when you as employees have not felt safe when you have been in the library since being back during the pandemic? If there have been, are you willing to tell us about one or more of those instances?
I can talk first, or do you want to go first, Lacey?
I have to be honest with you. On campus, I have never not felt safe. And I do think part of that is because I know that there is a doctor in charge. I think part of that is because I know that UNMC is 15 blocks southeast of us. I mean, it's right there. But I mean, that's just me personally. I have not felt unsafe on campus. I have had some instances just in the community where I've not felt safe, but that's not what the question is. So.
I have to say, I feel the same. We have the environmental services, our janitorial services do a pretty good job of wiping things down. A lot of us keep the sanitary wipes in our own offices, and I do that regularly when I come in, wipe my doors, my light switches, my chair. It does help that most of us do not come in every day. You saw that chart of what people pick to come in. So I think that's helpful to keep more of a feeling of staying safe, not being with people, limiting that time. The only time I feel a bit, get a little nervous around it is when people aren't honoring that 6-foot distance. I've joked that I'm going to wear a hoop skirt that's 6 feet around and you can't come closer to me than 6 feet. And people don't have a real good sense of what 6 feet really is. So those are the only times. That's a good question. For the most part, I think, and the figures bear that out, the data, we're doing a pretty good job here of keeping things safe.
Thank you. I'll move on to our next question. And I know you mentioned only having to do a few of these forms, but there was a question wondering if you have experienced difficulty obtaining student information to be able to fill out the BRT form, and if so, how did you handle those situations?
This one's yours, Lacey.
The BRT forms, a little bit. The first student that we turned the BRT on, 2 of us, myself and a staff member, actually turned them in almost simultaneously without knowing it. Neither of us were able to get that patron's name. They were a student. Our building services manager was very stealthy with his camera work and caught him and was able to kind of figure it out from there. The second one that was filled out was the one that I told the story with, Kathy responding to me really quickly. That particular patron actually gave me their ID because I had asked to verify them in the system. So I had all kinds of information on them. And the third BRT form, because one of the students had booked the study room online, we had their name available. I tell people, I tell my staff, if you're comfortable asking for the name, do it. If you're not, either come find somebody that is, or get a good description. If you feel unsafe at all, if somebody feels like they're going to get really rude with you, or that they might even get physical, which we have not had happen on campus, don't push it. It's not worth it. We'll figure it out another way.
Thanks, Lacey. Another question that came in was someone wondering if you were restricting flow of traffic at all. For example, at their institution, they're trying to have people enter south entrance and exit our east entrance.
Yes, we are. Some more signs help us to do that. We have, you saw those 6 doors in one of the slides. So 3 of them are enter and 3 of them are exit. And that there's 2 sets of doors. You saw the outside, you come into the foyer, and there's another set. All of those doors have the enter or exit on them. So there's no question which way to go, in or out. What else are we doing for traffic flow? I know that the committees we were in, that was a tough question for them to handle too. Some of the buildings on our campus are really old, and the hallways are narrow. So how do you keep, they're not even 6 feet wide in some of the places. So making sure that people are passing as minimally close as they can. And I think ultimately how they ended up taking care of that was to extend the time between classes a bit. So there's a little more time, you don't have to rush, but they didn't really come up, the arrows weren't going to work. If you have people going back and forth, they might brush up against each other, and that one really wasn't solved. We're lucky here in this library, we have wide open spaces. So once you're inside, it's pretty easy to stay 6 feet away. And remember, we only have 1/3 of the people. You saw the gate count, so there's not near as many people as there used to be in the library. So I'd say the exit and entrance are the biggest thing as far as traffic flow. If that didn't answer your question, go ahead and put it in chat again.
Thanks. Another question was, have you requested campus security to do extra rounds at all?
Go ahead,
We didn't request it, but they are. After the second BRT forum where the community member came in, I was contacted by campus security. I had a conversation with them. They let me know that they would be sending an officer around a bit more, and I notice it. There's one of their campus security officers is in the building every day at 5 o'clock, whether it's a Friday and we're closing or if he's just checking up. So I see an extra officer at least once a day, if not more.
Thank you. I think I've captured the questions that have come in so far and called them out, but if I missed yours, please feel free to re-enter it into the chat.
This is Joyce. I'm also reading some of the answers for our group study, Lacey. Some good ideas.
But when I do see one more question that just has come in, and it's wondering if you have any advice on staff who don't do well at wearing masks or distancing. That's a tricky one.
Hey, have you met the dean? I'd like to introduce you to our dean. Yeah, we're fortunate again that the people in our library wear the masks when they're outside of their office. So once you're in an office and you're doing your work, you can take your mask off. But anytime you step out, you are supposed to wear your mask. We've had those that really hate them with a passion and don't want to do it at all. But I think peer pressure has helped that situation because the rest of us all are. And there's a bit of public shaming maybe that goes on when we walk by and give you a look like, where's your mask? We got a mask. You need a mask? So fortunately, calling them out on it and saying, yeah, we need you to do this. And then if it needs to be taken up to the administration, it can be, Our dean is good at backing us up. So far, that's how we've handled it. If anyone else has other ideas, feel free to put them in there.
The question.
And another question.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Lacey.
I was just going to ask, to the person that asked the question about having advice on that, does your campus have a policy where you can kind of threaten them a little bit with it? Because that's going to make a difference. I mean, we do have it on campus. A face mask or covering is required. So if nothing else, if somebody's really nasty, which we haven't had anybody, but if somebody gets really, no, I'm not going to do it, we can say, okay, well then find another job. It's a policy.
Thanks for bringing that up, Lacey. That's right. Having that policy that says required, not suggested, has really made a difference. Do we have access to the Hothy Trust materials during this time? I'm trying to think if I haven't personally looked anything up. It seems like we do.
I think we do. I have not had to look anything up regarding that, but I feel like we do.
I think I saw some information from another one of our librarians to go to Hothy Trust, purposefully telling us that was available. I know there are some people from our library listening. If you know the answer, feel free.
Type it in. Yeah. Please and thank you.
And there's Katie Bishop.
Yes. Thanks, Katie. Public, but not the extra items. Cool. Thank you, Katie. I see a comment in the chats that's somebody had asked a fire marshal to come in to recommend stairway directions for flow, and I think that's pretty awesome. We have some signs, some really general signs. I think they just say stay to the right, so that our stairways are in the library fortunately pretty wide. So if there is one person going down and one person going up, they have room to pass one another. But again, it just kind of depends on whether or not they're paying attention to that stay to the right sign.
I see this next question from Shay, and you remind me, we did invite Kathy Pettit that Lacey talked about. We invited her to talk to the whole group on Zoom, and she did an excellent job discussing the reasons why we're wearing masks, why it's really important to be distant separated. She answered our questions, and I think everyone appreciated the time she took to come to talk with us. Past that, I think I would say if the person continues to not abide by the policies, then again, so who do you go up the line to? Who's that person's supervisor? Who's that supervisor's supervisor? If you have a chair or if you have the dean, then I think it's okay to take that up farther, and they may need to have a talk with them and let them know how important it is. On top of that, we told our staff, you are the model. If you're not wearing them, why should we expect our students to wear? So, yeah. My last thought was maybe campus security needs to talk to this person and say, you need to comply too.
My thought on that, and I mean, if your campus doesn't have this, it's not going to work. But my thought is, if it's bad enough where that person is not complying and their supervisor is not paying a lot of attention, tell them you're going to fill out a BRT form, and that probably would work for us at UNO. But if
I think it would.
Yeah, if your campus doesn't have it, that's a terrible suggestion because
then yeah. I'm hoping there's somewhere that you can go to take it up the ladder a ways. And the person that's not complying needs to have a good talking to. And if you give us the name, Lacey and I are happy to come and visit.
We'll have on our masks.
Yeah. Ah, the dean and an admin are asking people to. Oh, that's good to hear, Shay. I hope that works for you.
Yeah.
Tammy, you and your pool noodles, I don't know. Tammy's also from University of Nebraska.
I've seen photos of the pool noodles,
Mhm.
folks in restaurants having to put them on.
Yeah.
That kind of seems like a public shaming thing too.
It
You can't
does.
stay socially distant, so you have to wear the
Wear
pool
this
noodle
pool
of shame.
noodle. That might work for the person that Shay has. You wear this pool noodle.
Yeah.
I am so glad that these questions are coming and good interaction between everyone that's been attending, and I do appreciate it. I think Margot will have, like she said, this has been recorded, and when you get the recording, our contact information will also be available there. So if you want to contact Lacey or I with more questions or more ideas, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to do that.
Yes, thank you so much, Joyce and Lacey, for being with us today. And I will be sure to include your contact information when we share out the recording. And thank you for your willingness to answer any questions or continue the conversation. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.